Good morning and welcome to Monday's edition of Morning Ride here on the Delta Television, the People's Pride. On behalf of the board, management and staff of Delta Broadcasting Service, DBS Asaba, I welcome you to this week's edition of our flagship program on television, Morning Ride. My name is Blessing Usiagbada, and this morning I'm riding with Ogaga Ekama. Good morning, Ogaga.
Good morning, Blessing. How you doing?
I'm good. Happy new week to you. Although it's the 29th day in the month of June, and then we have one more day and we'll say goodbye to the month of June. So I'll still say happy new week to you.
I wish you same. How was your weekend?
It was good. It was good, and I love the fact that the atmosphere is cool. It rained yesterday. Earlier this morning, it drizzled a little. And everywhere is just cool. I think the heat wave is over. I pray that the heat wave is over for this year 2026.
No, after the rains comes another round of heat wave, of course. But well, thank God for the month of June. Is the last Monday in the month, and this will be wrapping. Tomorrow we'll wrap up the first half of the year 2026. So for those persons that have New Year resolutions, how have you been doing your New Year resolutions? Those persons that set goals for themselves, if it's a yearly goal, then by that estimate you should have been almost 50%, if not 50% past achieving your goals. If you've not done that, I think that's another opportunity for you to go back, assess yourself and think of what you can improve. And of course, if you have achieved your goals, and I think it's also time to celebrate, because one of the things that we as humans are likely to do, we tend to beat ourselves up when we don't achieve a certain goal. But sometimes as well, when we achieve our goals, we do not celebrate ourselves enough. We just feel like it's normal, it's what is expected. No, take out time also, celebrate yourself, celebrate your achievements.
Indeed, we need to learn how to celebrate our little wins. I know there's a lot you want to achieve, but then if you look back from the month of January now to the month of June, one or two little things you may have achieved in this year 2026 already. I think you should be grateful, and you should celebrate yourself, celebrate your little wins, celebrate your little successes, because it is quite important. It is as important as celebrating those bigger achievements or bigger milestones that you reach. It's very important. And just like Ogaga said, the first half of the year will be over soon, and so this just reminds us that time waits for no one. Time will not wait for you. If there's something you need to start working on it immediately, because the year 2026 will not wait for you, and the years that will come after will not wait for you. All right, this morning we'll bring you our dailies, front pages of our newspapers. We'll look at the headlines, analyze some of the headlines, and then we'll bring you our interview segments on Monday's edition of Morning Ride. So on our newspaper analysis this morning, I'll start with the Punch newspaper. All right, so I would start with the Guardian newspaper, The Guardian newspaper. And on the Guardian newspaper, we have as major headline, 58 insurers race against time to meet recapitalization deadline. That's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. At the top of the Guardian, we have other headlines there that says, Senate defends state police bill as child of necessity. That's on news page 3. INEC releases access codes today as APC rejects fake list of candidates. Get details on page 3 as well. NIMET workers to ground aviation activities over unpaid dues. That's on page 5. At the bottom of the Guardian newspaper, we have doctors give federal government fresh 4-week deadline over unpaid allowances. So many unpaid dues and allowances this morning from doctors and of course the aviation workers. Okay, this one says Abuad Multi-System Hospital commences robotics surgery. We have Dixon Kwankwaso meets as NDC alleges INEC denied portal access. That's on news page 6. Akume warns against reprisals as police arrest 10 over Macban chairman's killings. That's on news page 9. Probe alleged diversion of 6.3 billion naira constituency fund Serap tells NAS. That's on page 5. Okay? This one is for Ogaga's gender. It says, only 25% of men have healthy sperm, experts say. Alright, and the last one we have Providence Unity Bank to commence operations as one entity. These are the headlines on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
Alright, now we'll move to the Daily Trust, and the lead here says, how gang murdered Benue Meeti Allah chair. Friend, how gang murdered Benue Meeti Allah chair. Friend, petrol price still high, says FCCPC. No comment on arrest of bandits returning from Hajj. A statement credited to the Katsina state government. Africa renews its confidence in Nigeria. You can get details of that story on page 8 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And lastly, from the Daily Trust is just a photo speak here celebrating the Borno State Governor Babaganam Zulum for 7 years of sterling performance, and you can see different projects listed out and photos of his different achievements infrastructure wise. Those are the headlines from the Daily Trust.
Now let's look at the Daily Sun newspaper. On the Daily Sun this morning, we have anxiety grows in opposition camps. Riders, options for Atiku will be others narrow over parties' legal battles. Nigeria's democratic institutions getting weaker, Bode George warns. That's on page 6. Page 6 of the Daily Sun. That's the major headline. Other headline says, Anglican Church raises the alarm over terrorists hiding in southeast forests. That's on page 29. CBN's terror financing crackdown raises compliance burden for banks and BDCs. Federal government borrowings from local banks jump 75.6% to 40.38 trillion naira. That's on page 25. And then the writer says 17.39 trillion naira borrowed in 1 year. Primaries, APC disowns purported list of successful candidates. That's on page 27. Use rising foreign reserves to check cost of living. Nigerians urge federal government as petrol prices defy crude oil slump, deepen cost of living crisis. That's on page 6 and continued on page 24. Nigeria leads sub-Saharan Africa as 24 varsities make 2026 global rankings. That you'll find on page 26 of the Daily Sun.
Alright, the Vanguard newspaper is next, and the major headline here says, Federal government orders struggling to meet obligations despite rise in revenue. We've got a couple of riders, I'll just take a few. Revenue may hit 150 trillion naira by year end. Revenue figure excludes foreign, domestic borrowings during period. Issue is not revenue growth, but accountability. And this is CCPE's Muda Yusuf. Budgets not tied to credible development plans, coming from Action Aid. 2027 timeline. INEC parties disagree over access codes for candidates. 4-bag 95-year jail terms for rape in Niger. Telecom subscribers rise to 188 million as broadband penetration hits 55.67%. Still more headlines from the Vanguard newspaper. Industrial dispute. NAD gives federal government 4 weeks to avert nationwide strike. SERP gives Akpabio Abbas 1 week to probe 6.3 billion naira constituency funds or face legal actions. Now to the top strip of the Vanguard newspaper. Peter Obi can't beat Tinubu in Lagos again. A statement coming from the presidency. Motorists, commuters stranded as flood submerges Lagos roads. Motorists, commuters stranded as flood submerges Lagos roads. FCCPC to marketers, cut petrol prices or face sanctions. Those are the headlines from the Vanguard newspaper.
Now let's look at the Daily Times. The Daily Times has its major headline: FCCPC warns oil marketers, threatens sanctions over pump price exploitation. Then at the top we have troops foil terrorist attack, recover arms at Benway Yam Market. INEC allegedly denies NDC access code to upload candidates' names. State police bill, product of national consensus, not political expediency. This is coming from Bamidele. That's on page 2. And those are the headlines from the front page of the Daily Times.
Moving out to the Nigerian Tribune, the lead here says, concerns over high cost of petrol. The writer, despite decline in global oil rates. Product still sells between 1,190 and 1,210. FCCPC frowns on exploitation in oil market to sanction profiteers. Ogun links Ijebu-Ode gas emissions to geological fault line. Tinubu, Sanwo-Olu, Bode George honor Herbert Macaulay 80 years after. 2027, anxiety grips candidates as INEC releases codes for upload. The riders, APC, ADC receive theirs. It's still waiting game for NDC. You can get details of that story on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on health, frequent ejaculation may improve sperm quality, and this is according to an Oxford study. Resident doctors declare industrial disputes, give federal government fresh 4-week deadline. Operation Kosaye, Ogun, Lagos hailed police onslaught against criminals. The rider police arrest 88, rescue 5 kidnapped victims. And lastly, from the Nigerian Tribune, Osun CSOs suspend protest, give IGP 72 hours to redeploy police commissioner.
All right, those are the papers we have for review this morning. I'll start with the last paper that Ugaga just took, because that's the Nigerian Tribune, and I think this headline affects all Nigerians. Talking about high cost of petrol. Now, there's a decline in global oil rates, yet petrol still sells between 1,190 and 1,210 in some parts of the country.
Some even higher.
Yes, some even higher in states like Delta State and other states. In Lagos, it will be cheaper. Yes, in states like Lagos State, it will be cheaper, but in other states, it's not as cheap as it is. And the headline there says, concerns over high cost of petrol, despite decline in global oil rates, product sells between 1,190 and 1,210. FCC frowns on exploitation in oil market to sanction profiteers. That's on page 7. But I just don't want it to be, something we just read on paper. We don't see it being enforced. I think that the FCCPC should indeed begin to sanction oil marketers who have refused to bring down the cost of petrol. We've seen this happen. We've seen this play out in the country over and over, where once there's an increase in global prices of oil, then here in Nigeria, even if what they are selling to us are products that they've already had, they begin to increase the price. But once it comes down, it's rare to see these oil marketers and fuel stations reduce the price of petrol. At this point, I don't think FCCPC should just be speaking or issuing statements. It should be going round as it is to sanction those fuel stations, those oil marketers that have refused to reduce the prices of petrol, because this is the height of wickedness to Nigerians.
Yes, so just like you rightly stated, although speaking with some business persons, they try to rationalize the reason behind why, if prices come down, it does not reflect immediately at the pump. And they said that, of course, they already got the stock at a high rate, so they need to exhaust the stock that they have, because if they sell at a lower rate, they run at a loss. However, that is not same, because when we see situations, you bought a stock cheaper and the price goes up, they still rationalize it. They'll tell you that why they have to increase it immediately, because they have to make profit so that they can purchase the new stock. So exactly. It's as though in all of this, the masses suffer for it. The populace suffer for it, because to them it's business, while to the common Nigerian, the populace, they are like, we're being reaped. The hardship is telling on us. So this is where regulatory bodies now come in.
And we have these bodies, we have these agencies that are saddled with the responsibility.
Definitely. So, like it's often said that Nigeria does not lack laws. It is enforcement. That's the major implementation, enforcement. Those are some of the major challenges that plagues our law and our constitution. So, in this situation, it's high time, because it's not something that is new. So, any regulatory body, any organization, institution with foresight should have sat down and said, how do we handle this? Except they are just institutions that are not there to serve Nigerians. Because if you are there to serve Nigerians, then you should ensure to make life easier for Nigerians. So you know that this is something that happens occasionally. It's just like what is happening with aviation fuel right about now. Some persons have also called that the federal government subsidizes it for this period. Because these are different things plaguing Nigerians. So this should be looked into, and we ensure that at least there is a form of alleviation for Nigerians generally, because it's not a good one. And I hope that very soon, within the next 1 week at most,
this price will
come down. If my memory serves me right, before the US in Iran war started, which started February 28th, fuel was going less than 1,000 naira. So if we can get that margin again within 800 plus, less than 900, I think Nigerians will be quite relieved, because to a large extent it will be like almost 500 naira taken off, because remember that at a certain point, even we Nigerians were getting fuel for over 1,300 naira. So if it comes down to about 800 there, about that's 500. It's a whole lot. Now,
and a longer term solution to this problem should be the federal government fixing our refineries. Yes, they should fix our refineries, because if our refineries are fixed, we have the crude oil here, we can refine our products, and I don't think we'll have these challenges. But because we are dependent on what we get from outside the country, we always have these issues. So our refineries should be fixed, and we should try to be independent as a country when it comes to refining our crude oil products and managing our resources here in Nigeria. Is there any headline you want to take?
Yes. So I want us to look at this INEC situation with the deregistration, because it's one headline that was consistent on different headlines from Nigerian Tribune. They put it this way: 2027 anxiety grips candidates as INEC releases code for upload. Now ADC, which is good news, they received theirs. Then NDC, because of the Federal High Court's ruling in Kogi State, they are yet to receive that. Now, my own concern with all of this, despite the undertone, the ruling and all of that, is that it's the coloration it gives to the democracy of Nigeria. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, the ADC was embroiled in the legalities about the registration and not being on the ballot for certain reasons. They did not meet certain percentage of all of that
And
in
then
the previous election,
yeah.
and after that again, it was withdrawn, and now it's now on the end. So it's giving more voice and attention to the statement when people say that this administration is bent on fighting the opposition, and it's not a fair playing ground. A fair playing ground is not given. And also, let's remember that even the INEC chairman, Professor Amukpito, also has is also robed in controversies concerning his fairness and his neutrality, because we saw what happened. A tweet, which is now Twitter, which is now known as X, was brought from years ago when he was supporting a statement. Is an account allegedly affiliated to him was said to have tweeted in support of the APC and all of that. Although INEC came out to debunk it, but we've still not seen an independent investigation to that. And also recently in the, I think, Ekiti State election, we saw the APC chairman of Edo State adorned in an INEC vest. However, I came out to debunk it that was AI. So we're just seeing different things that makes Nigeria ask, is INEC really independent, or is this INEC partisan and skewed towards the APC? And when we see all of this, meanwhile, this judge, the judge that ruled in favor of this court had earlier ruled that, okay, NDC was properly registered, and now they are saying, so because the claim is that they are bearing the logo of a certain
PMP, Peace Movement Party, something like
yes.
that.
So, and it's so, when you see the MO in this administration of why other positions are deregistered or their legality are being questioned, it's like other opposition is still one of the MOs that people allege that it's as though they incite or a certain party is paid and they come to fight. Imagine what was happening in the ADC when Peter Obi was still there. And we saw what the chief of staff to the president said then, Femi Gbajabiamila. He was talking to, I think, a certain Leke, and was telling him, fight for your party, stay there, don't do any. Imagine a public office holder, chief of staff to the president, making such a statement. And the moment Peter Obi left the ADC, that Leke defected to the APC. And now Peter Obi is now in the NDC, and now we're seeing legal battle. Remember, when Peter Obi was in Labour Party was just making the headlines, different factions and all of that. So, and the judiciary also, in all of this, to round off, in all of this, the judiciary also has to be seen as fair. Because now, the judiciary is one arm that there are certain allegations, and because of the way they've acted in time past, now they are questioning their fairness and saying that they are not also seemingly looking like a tool that is being used by the executive as well. So institutions, we need strong institutions in Nigeria. We need strong institutions above strong individuals.
Yes, I'll pick it up from where Ogaga stopped, and I'm going to focus more on the judiciary because, like you asked the question, is INEC truly independent? My question is our judiciary really independent in Nigeria? Because we see cases where a court will give a ruling, another court, a higher one, will give another ruling. I think issues concerning political parties should be settled, done and dusted before their primaries, so we don't have cases like this. And political parties should ensure that there are no loopholes whatsoever in their activities, no loopholes that would deny them success or deny them the due process when times like this come. Now, this is an allegation we've not yet heard from INEC, but I know, like Ogaga said, the legal issue where the courts has asked INEC that ADC should return to status quo. It's what's behind this issue of them not receiving portal access. But then the courts, the judiciary, we don't want issues like this. You should be independent, and political parties should ensure that they put their acts together. The PMP, I'm hearing that for the first time, accusing the NDC of using the same logo. These are issues that should not even linger for so long. These are issues that should be solved as soon as possible.
Thing, is that why you call for a party to be deregistered?
I don't understand it.
Because even the court has the right to also say that, okay, you are claiming for a logo. Probably the NDC people should resolve this out of court, or because
yes, those are issues that should not even take the court's time to
yes, because even initially the judge was saying that even the PMP, they were not joined to the initial issue, so you've given a court ruling that INEC should register this party.
You know, just like Edo State governor, came up with a special court to address kidnapping and cultism cases. Maybe we should have a separate court for political issues, so political parties can resolve their issues as fast as possible.
And like you said, there should be a time frame.
Yes.
If within this time frame, maybe before registration of parties and primaries, if within this time frame you don't file a suit and the party has been registered, there are certain litigations that cannot put forward again. I think it should be done that way. INEC
should indeed be very transparent, and the chairman of INEC should be really, really careful. He should know that Nigerians are watching. Now, there are some things that Ogaga mentioned, and I don't want to join the set of Nigerians that believe that there are cases of you being
Partisan.
in support. Yes, you being in support of the ruling party and all that, but you should be seen as someone who has integrity and someone who doesn't belong to any party. It is called the independent. There's independence in
But how can you be independent when it's always the ruling party that actually gets to appoint and also appoints the chairman? So it's like you being a football match and choosing the referee.
Yeah.
So do you think the referee will actually blow against me? Or don't you think
the federal government should have nothing to fear? One of the headlines here says Peter Obi can't beat Tinubu in Lagos again, says presidency. So if they are really certain of victory come 2027, I don't see the reason why they should be fighting political parties. Allegedly though, why they should be fighting political parties, or why they should be wanting to use INEC as a tool to fight political parties. It should be a free, fair, and transparent elections. That's all we're asking for in 2027. But still, political parties should put their house together. Let's move on from that headline as we look at the major headline of the Vanguard. Now, this one says federal government orders struggling to meet obligations despite rise in revenue. That's on page 11. The riders are quite many, but I'll just stick one rider there. It says issue is not revenue growth but accountability, says CPPE's Muda Yusuf. All right, another one says malgovernance staring us in the face. Yeah, so we have our revenue may hit 150 trillion naira by the end of this year, according to the first rider of that story. But the headline says federal government is still struggling to meet obligations despite the rise in revenue. And these are the questions we ask all the time. I remember when fuel subsidy was removed and the federal government came and they said, they've been able to save a certain amount of money, I think about 1 trillion naira then, I can't remember the figure now, that they've been able to save money, and the presidency is so sure, they're so certain that all the policies that the president has come up with, that this government have come up with, that they are yielding positive results already. But the question is, are Nigerians feeling the effects of these policies? Yes, we are seeing figures. You tell us you've saved money, you've been able to generate this amount of money. Now, this headline says that our revenue may hit 150 trillion naira by the end of this year. Now, if we're having this much, if we're able to generate this much revenue, then what are these monies used for? Where are they pushing this money? What sector of our economy are we pushing this money into? And over time, we've had analysts on this set talk about sectors that they feel the federal government should focus on. They should channel these revenues into, and then when they channel them, that we will move from being a consuming nation to a producing nation. But still, at this point, we're still consuming. We're not yet producing enough to export, or not even just to export, but producing enough that we will use in the country, talk less of what we produce to export to other countries in the world. So indeed, Nigerians need to, it's time that Nigerians begin to feel the impact of these policies, the positive impact of these policies. It's time that we begin to see the revenues and what these revenues are used for in our economy.
Okay, when it comes to budgets, revenue, finances, one of the major challenges is a lack of transparency, accountability, and institutions that should carry out oversight functions, more often than not, are found culpable. So we see a situation where funds are released, and we're not talking about thousands of naira.
Yeah.
Sometimes not even millions of naira.
Billions.
Billions. And the funds cannot be accounted for. Now, let's even go back to where we started this paper review from. Petrol. You talked about refineries. Do you know the billions of naira that have been invested? That if we even put them since the Obasanjo administration up till now, if it has not even hit trillions. If we put them together, funds that have been expended on a so-called refinery or so-called refineries.
Rehabilitation of our refineries.
The refineries. It was during this Tinubu administration that they came out and they told us that Port Harcourt refineries, they are working already, and some certain journalists went there, took some parts, cut and joined, and told us that they are refining already. But a few months down the line, what's happening? What's happening? An individual in the person of Aliko Dangote was able to set up a refinery still in the same Nigeria. Of course, he came out and talked about cabals that fought him and all of that. But the government of the nation does not have one refinery working, optimally refining products. And now the funds are yet to be accounted for. Or should we go back to off the mic situation, the NDDC?
And then the Senate has called for Mele Kyari. They've summoned him, I think 9 times. He's yet to honor that invitation.
So that's part of the oversight.
He's outside the country.
But Mele Kyari, the time that Oshomole, they were doing their different committee things and all of that, and Oshomole actually said that Mele Kyari should be ordered to show up, or an arrest warrant should be issued.
Yeah.
Before the floor of the Senate, of course, it was said that constitutionally, it's only the President of the Senate that has the right to order the arrest of head of an institution or MDA and all of that. However, I'm still saying that the Senate, the National Assembly in general, they have failed to a large extent in their oversight functions. Yeah. I was talking about the off-the-mic situation. We've seen different committees put together that they will start questioning an individual on how funds were spent, or is it the Ponzi situation when somebody will start fainting? It's like they know the MO. If you go to court, if there's a litigation for you and you show up in court, before you know, the person will fall sick. If you are before a committee, you are either fainting or you have a medical issue and you are asking if your passport was seized. Suddenly you have a medical issue that will require that you travel out of the country to get medical attention. So we've seen all of this. And before you know, the case is swept under the carpet. So if a Nigerians, and guess what? These things now happen and they come up again when, for example, you now defect from that party to another party. Then they will not start probing how you spent funds when you were heading an agency.
It shouldn't be so.
Or a ministry.
Like one of the writers says that malgovernance is staring us at the face. Now we see these things daily, but the question is, what can we do? What more can we do? When the Senate, they fold their hands, they will summon a particular person, the person doesn't turn up. I think after that, Oshomole's issue, that committee, an apology was given to Mele Kyari.
Oshomole was asked to apologize.
Yes, he was asked to apologize to Mele Kyari.
Not really Mele Kyari, because I think about is it the oil sector or the NNPC? Because they are criminals.
Yes, they are criminals. That people don't want their children together because they're criminals. They have to apologize and all that. So when agencies like Ogagas, when agencies that should have oversight functions, carry out oversight functions, when they fold their hands and watch, what more can be done? So really, we need accountability when it comes to funds, how funds are used, are spent in the country, how our revenue is being used. We need accountability. The media should hold we should continue, we hold them accountable, but we should continue to hold the federal government, hold the Senate accountable, hold these agencies accountable. Because if you look at the money, the amount that during the committee screening, the amount that was mentioned, the amount alone that was mentioned, I think from 2013 till now, NNPC has a lot to answer. They have a lot of questions to answer. And
it's so sad that this is the same country that looking for funds while out there sourcing for
funds. Yes, we're borrowing from local banks. There's a headline there that talked about the amount of money that federal government had borrowed. Okay, it says federal government borrowings from local banks jump 75.6% to 40.38 trillion naira from local banks alone.
So it's quite disturbing that a country that keeps borrowing does not even know how to manage the funds and account for the funds that they have at hand. Another troubling issue, it still has to do with finances. From the Nigerian Tribune, it says resident doctors declare industrial disputes, give federal government fresh 4-week deadline. There's another, from the Vanguard, it also talks about industrial disputes. NAD gives federal government 4 weeks to avert nationwide strike. Now,
and then also NIMET workers to ground aviation activities over unpaid dues.
So all of this is just very disturbing. Now, start from the health sector. It's a no-brainer that we do not want those in the health personnel to down tools, be it the doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and all of that. We do not need them to down tools, because when doctors down tools now, what happens is that when there is an emergency, you are asking the common Nigerian to go to a private hospital. The Nigerian that in some cases they have not even still been able to afford what government hospitals request of them, then you expect them to go to private hospitals. No, and this is not the first time it is happening. And in all fairness to this administration, it did not begin with this administration. Yes. We've seen things like this, even with ASU. We see that agreements, MOUs that have been signed are yet to be implemented, allowances that have been granted, implemented on paper, they are yet to be paid. So we need all of this to stop. We need all of this to stop. And why is very, very disturbing, and that's another argument that should be had. The cost of governance in this country should be cut down. Because when it comes to doctors, when it comes to public service, civil service, when they talk about increment, be it allowances, implementation of allowances, or increment of salaries, normally the first reaction is a pushback. They say there are no funds. We don't have enough monies. And meanwhile, we all know that when fuel subsidy was removed, no matter whether irrespective of the side of the divide you fall into, allocations to the states, all the states increased. That's the truth. But when we say, okay, allowance, increase salaries, give bonuses, the state governments, local government chairmen, because they now even have their own allocation, although that's a conversation for another time, whether the local government, they now really still have their own autonomy. But they'll say there are no funds, but let it be that there's an allowance that was introduced for politicians, or salary increment for politicians. We don't hear the argument that there are no money. So they'll even rather sign that funds be borrowed so that they can get themselves new cars, increase their salaries, renovate their offices, wardrobe allowances. These are things that are done at least every 4 years.
They also have medical allowances where they're allowed to travel out of the country for...
they have ESTA codes.
Yes. So it just shows how they do not care about the health sector in Nigeria.
Should we talk about the S's, the SSAs that they have, and how some of them use it as a form of consolation or as a form of payback reward for their so-called cronies. We saw a situation, it was in Rivers State, when the then governor, Nyesom Wike, was about to leave and employed over 200 SSAs that the then governor came in and was not thinking whether to drop them or not. So we've seen all of these. And when it now comes to those persons that run the economy, the major players in the economy, the workforce of the nation, funds are not made available. So thank God that resident doctors, they've given the federal government a certain duration of 4 weeks. That's 8 months. Yeah. So I think that's more than enough time compared to the fact that they already had time before now. That's more than enough time for them to put their acts in order, meet with the resident doctors, talk with them, and release funds.
Yeah, just like you said, this issue did not start with the present administration. I agree. But most times, my issue with NAD, federal government, ASU, federal government issues is my issue with that, that scenario is the fact that the federal government does not, that they don't come out to issue a statement and tell Nigerians exactly what the issues are. We only hear from NAD, we hear from ASU, they come out and they say, oh, the federal government owes us this, there was a 2009 agreement, this and that. We don't hear from the federal government. They don't tell us what their challenges are. Why? Because I'm just asking myself, how much will it cost to address these issues? How much? So they really don't come out, they're not transparent in their dealings with this.
So the question should be, is it really how much, or is there a willingness to really address this?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. They come out and tell us what the issues are. When NAD goes on strike, we suffer. We are the ones who suffer. Like I said, these politicians have medical allowances, they can travel out of the country to go seek medical services, but our healthcare system here in Nigeria, we're still struggling with it. So they should let us know what their challenges are, why they can't address these issues once and for all. And to the unions, I always tell myself that once I hear NAD and ASU speaking, sometimes I just don't want to pay attention, because I ask myself, if I have an agreement with someone, and then you ask us to sit and discuss, and we discuss, and you tell me, okay, just go back to work, I will settle these issues, and you play me, you renege on your agreement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, I will not listen to you again. I will insist that those issues are settled once and for all. Yes, I know that when NAD goes on strike, when ASU goes on strike, it is, the sick people in Nigeria, or parents and students who suffer. But it's better to just suffer once and for all, really. The federal government has to have the willingness to address these issues. And I'm just wondering, I keep wondering, what are the issues really? Is it so difficult for the federal government to address these issues? Not all of them require funds. Some of them are, promotions. Some of them are, some policies that should be implemented. Not all of them require funds.
Some has to do with the payment structure.
Exactly. So really, these issues should be settled once and for all. And I think NAD should not back down this time around. Like I said, I know it's not going to be easy if NAD goes on strike. But this issue should be settled once and for all. We're tired. I think at this point, even the labor unions and even the media, when we hear these things, we are tired already of hearing, NAD issuing strikes and issuing threats of, embarking on strikes, and the federal government do not take them seriously anymore. So this time around, they should put their foot on the ground. Whatever it is, they should discuss with the federal government, and they should wait for the federal government to address those things before they call off their strike. And like Okega said, 4 weeks is enough. They've given the warning now. The federal government should not wait until the 4 weeks expired, the last week, before they begin to run and ask for meetings. They should start addressing it now that NAD has issued this warning. I think those are the headlines we'll take this morning. This one says, SERAP gives Akpabio Abbas 1 week to probe 6.3 billion naira constituency funds or face legal action. SERAP is another... SERAP is an organization or pressure group. What should we call them?
They're just like an NGO. They're like an NGO.
All right. SERAP is another NGO that is always on the news or in the news, always talking to the federal government, talking to the Senate, issuing threats, legal action, and yet we don't see what comes out from the legal action. But earlier we talked about accountability. We talked about management of our funds. 6.3 billion naira it's quite a lot of money, and it's for constituency projects or constituency funds. Though 6.3 billion naira cannot be accounted for, and SERAP has called on the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, to urgently address these issues. 6.3 billion naira. The allegations that money may have been diverted, may have been misapplied, but they remain unaccounted for. So let's see if SERAP would pull this one, or as usual, just sweep it under the carpet.
And in all of these, we've talked about oversight functions. In all of these, despite what the executive they are doing and what the legislature they are doing, if we have the judiciary functioning at its peak, irrespective of the shortcomings, the alleged corruptions, the partisanship and all of that, if we had a very strong judiciary, all these issues would have been resolved. Because what promotes and what encourages more crime is lack of punitive measures. So if a certain politician knows that they mismanaged funds, and while they are still in office, they are sentenced, other politicians will take a cue from that. They realize that, okay, the judiciary, they are up and doing. Then that gives the average Nigerian the boldness to even approach the judiciary. Because do we know that even these are lawmakers that represent us, we have a right to them that they are called back. We can sue, just like Serap. We have different lawsuits of Serap flying up and down, but what is the end result? What is the judiciary doing about all of this? As a Nigerian, I even have the right to even sue the Senate President. I have the right to sue any political office holder because I pay my taxes. The country is being run by my taxes.
Yeah, and that's why governance is, everybody is involved in governance. Like Ogara said, constituents should hold their House of Representatives, their House of Assembly members, they should hold them accountable. When funds are released to our constituencies, we should be able to see what these funds are used for. I don't know the exact figure, but I'm aware that local government areas in Nigeria, they receive substantial amount of money.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking that there's still a debate of local government autonomy, if they really...
They already have the autonomy, financial autonomy.
On paper, they do.
On paper?
On paper, they do. There is the argument that some governors still control the funds of the local government, but on paper, they have their autonomy. But the funds, there's the argument that some state governors are still the ones that still disburse.
Well, here in Delta State, we see some local government areas that carry out projects. So here in Delta State, I don't think the state government controls the funds meant for local government areas, and so constituents can, like Ogara said, can approach their House of Assembly member and ask them questions. What are you using the funds to do? We need to see projects, because most of them will talk about roads. There are some things we talk about in Nigeria. If we leave it to the federal government cannot do it alone. State government has its role to play. The local government chairman, you have your roles to play.
Yes, of course.
In your communities, your roads cannot be bad, and then you sit there as a local government chairman and not do anything.
Now saying this, when you begin to probe and interrogate and analyze what happens in Nigeria, then you start seeing different lapses.
Exactly.
And it still falls back to what I talked about, lack of strong institutions. Because in all of this, I've seen a situation where, although it was not, I think it wasn't in Delta State, but I've seen a situation where somebody, a citizen, was doing active citizenship, went and covered, now in the area of social media, anybody can be a journalist, and it's so good, covered terrible roads in his locality and was calling out the local government chairman. Do you know that they went to this person's house, beat him up with talks? Sometimes it's even painful that policemen are also culpable. They will say, like, who are you? They will pick you up, they will lock you up.
It's really
it's so terrible. But if in that kind of situation, when that thing goes viral, even without the person pressing charges, police, they are quick to say the person has not come to report the case. Okay.
You've not filed the report.
So even if you report the case, we've seen situations. See what is happening in Osun State now. Even the governor is crying that the commissioner of police is complicit. That the APC, they are using federal might to fight Accord Party. Recently, one of the youth leaders of the Accord Party was killed. Governor Ademola Adeleke, governor of the state, is crying that the commissioner of police, he has sent him videos back to back. He's not doing anything about it. That is a governor. And
that brings us to state police. Let's see if state police would work. Because like Ogaka said, these are no allegations. These are facts that we've seen over and over, reports that we've seen over and over, where people demand for accountability, and instead of the federal government to act, instead of the police to act, security agencies to act, they begin to terrorize innocent citizens. It shouldn't be so.
They align with political might.
Federal government should play its role. State government should play its role. Local government chairmen should play their roles. Local government areas should play their roles. Like I said, you can't be a local government chairman. You receive funds from the state or from the federal government, and then there are bad roads in your local government area. There are things that needs to be fixed, and you are folding your hands waiting for it. It shouldn't be so at all. And that's why when it comes to corruption, I tell people that when we talk about corruption, don't talk about the federal government. Don't think that because it's just
if we talk about corruption,
yes, from the bottom to the top. So as Nigerians, we should fight corruption. In our offices, don't take bribes. In our offices, we hear of cases where you go to an office with your file and your file is kept in the cupboard because you've not dropped anything. You've not wet the ground. It shouldn't be so. You and I, every one of us, we have a role to play in fighting corruption, and we should play our parts to make Nigeria better. All right, those are the headlines this morning. Please go get yourself copies of our newspapers and read up for yourselves, or you can check them online. That's it on newspaper analysis this morning. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you our guest interview segment. Please stay tuned.